The hot summer sun beat down mercilessly on Zara Lancaster's exposed skin as she stood trembling on the rough wooden auction block, her wrists bound with coarse rope that bit into her flesh. The year was 1876, and in the dusty frontier town of Redemption Creek, Colorado Territory, human dignity was just another commodity to be bartered away to the highest bidder. $500 for this fine specimen, shouted the auctioneer, a portly man with a greasy mustache and eyes that reminded Zara of a snake. Look at her, gentlemen. Strong back, pretty face. She'll make a fine housekeeper. Or whatever else you might desire. Raucous laughter erupted from the crowd of men gathered around the auction block. Some were miners with dirt permanently etched into their skin, others cattle barons in fine suits, and a few were simply drifters looking for cheap entertainment. They all had one thing in common: they viewed her as property, not a person. Zara kept her head high despite the humiliation burning through her veins. Just 3 weeks ago, she had been the respectable daughter of a Boston banker. Traveling west to join her uncle after her parents' deaths left her without means. The stagecoach robbery that took her freedom seemed like a nightmare from which she couldn't wake. 600, called a man with yellowed teeth and alcohol on his breath. 700, countered another, his eyes roaming her body in a way that made her stomach churn. Zara closed her eyes, unwilling to see which of these men would claim ownership of her. The debt her captors claimed she owed for her passage and room and board was nothing but a lie to justify their actions. But the local law enforcement, such as it was, seemed uninterested in her protests. 800! The new voice came from the back of the crowd, deep and commanding. The bidding continued, reaching $1,000. Zara opened her eyes, scanning the crowd for her potential buyer, praying for some small mercy in a situation that offered little hope. $1,500! The same authoritative voice called out, silencing the crowd. The auctioneer's eyes widened with surprise and delight. 1,500 going once, going twice. This ends now. The crowd parted as a tall figure pushed through. Zara's eyes fell upon a broad-shouldered man with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a clear winter sky. Unlike many of the rough-looking men in attendance, he carried himself with quiet confidence. His dark hat shadowed features that seemed carved from stone. But there was something in his expression that didn't match the cruelty she'd come to expect. "I said this ends now," he repeated, stepping forward. A star-shaped badge glinted on his vest, a marshal's badge. "Come down," he said directly to Zara, his voice softening. "You're safe with me." The auctioneer sputtered indignantly. "Now, see here, Marshal. This is a legal... The marshal's hand moved to rest on the revolver at his hip. "Show me the documentation proving this woman's legal indenture. Show me the court order allowing for her sale." The crowd grew restless, murmuring among themselves as the auctioneer's face reddened. "This woman was traveling to her family when she was robbed and kidnapped," the marshal continued, his voice carrying across the town square. "That's not debt collection. That's a federal crime." He turned back to Zara, extending his hand toward her. "Miss, please come down. You're under my protection now." With legs shaking from exhaustion and emotion, Zara hesitated only briefly before stepping toward him. When his warm hand enveloped hers, she nearly collapsed with relief. "The name's Alexander Owens," he said quietly as he helped her down from the platform. "Marshal Owens to most, but you can call me Alex." "Zara Lancaster," she whispered, her voice hoarse from thirst and fear. "Thank you." Before they could move away, the man who had been orchestrating the auction stepped forward, flanked by 2 rough-looking associates. "Now, wait just a minute, Marshal. We've got expenses to recover. This woman, Alex interrupted firmly, is coming with me, and if I see any of you conducting another human auction in my jurisdiction, you'll be seeing the inside of a federal prison." He guided Zara through the dispersing crowd, his hand steady at her back. When they were clear of the square, he stopped to cut the ropes binding her wrists. "I'm taking you to the doctor first," he said, frowning at the raw, bleeding skin beneath the bonds. "Then we'll sort out getting you to your uncle's place." Zara's knees finally gave way, the events of the past weeks crashing down on her all at once. Alex caught her before she hit the ground, lifting her easily into his arms. I was going to die here," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. Or worse. His arms tightened protectively around her. Not while I'm alive, Miss Lancaster. I promise you that. Alex carried her down the main street. Ignoring the curious stares of townsfolk, his stride was purposeful as he made his way to a small building with a weathered sign identifying it as Dr. Samuel Wheeler's medical practice. The bell above the door jingled as Alex pushed it open with his shoulder. The interior was cool and smelled of antiseptic and herbs, a welcome change from the dust and sweat of the auction block. "Doc Wheeler," Alex called out, gently setting Zara down on a wooden chair. A door at the back of the room opened, revealing an elderly man with spectacles perched on his nose and sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Marshal Owens. "What brings you—" The doctor stopped mid-sentence when he saw Zara. "Good heavens! What happened to this young lady?" "She was being sold at auction by Ryder and his gang," Alex explained, his jaw tightening with barely controlled anger. "She needs medical attention." Dr. Wheeler's kind eyes widened with shock, then narrowed with determination. "Bring her back here immediately." As Alex helped her to the examination room, Zara felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. The marshal's presence was solid and reassuring beside her. And even though she was in a strange town far from home, she no longer felt entirely alone. "I'll wait outside," Alex said once she was settled on the examination table. "No!" The word burst from Zara's lips before she could stop it. The thought of being separated from her rescuer, even by a door, filled her with panic. "Please, stay." Alex exchanged a look with the doctor, who nodded his understanding. "I'll just be examining your wrists and checking for other injuries, my dear," Dr. Wheeler explained gently. "The marshal can certainly remain if that makes you more comfortable." Alex took a seat in the corner, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair. As the doctor cleaned and bandaged her wrists, Zara found herself studying the marshal more closely. He was younger than she had initially thought, perhaps 30 years old, with a strong jawline softened by the hint of a 5 o'clock shadow. Despite his imposing presence, there was something gentle in the way he watched over her. "You mentioned your uncle," Alex said, breaking the silence. "Where were you headed before all this happened?" "Silver Creek," Zara replied. "My Uncle William has a small ranch there. After my parents died, he offered me a home." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "Silver Creek's about 3 days' ride from here. Once Doc Wheeler gives you a clean bill of health, I can arrange for safe passage." Dr. Wheeler finished wrapping her wrists in clean bandages. "You're suffering from mild dehydration and exhaustion, my dear, but nothing that rest and proper nourishment won't fix. I recommend at least a day's rest before traveling." "She can stay at Mrs. Holloway's boarding house," Alex decided. "It's clean, secure, and Mrs. Holloway is a trustworthy woman." I have no money," Zara admitted, shame coloring her cheeks. "The men who took me stole everything I had." Alex waved away her concern. "Don't worry about that now. We'll get you settled first, then figure out the rest." After thanking the doctor, Alex escorted Zara to a tidy 2-story building a few streets over. The sign above the door read, "Holloway Boarding House," with flowers planted in boxes beneath every window. "Martha," Alex called as they entered the front parlor. "You have a new guest." A plump woman with graying hair pulled into a tight bun appeared from the back of the house, wiping her hands on her apron. Her initial smile of greeting faltered when she took in Zara's disheveled appearance. "Goodness gracious!" she exclaimed, hurrying forward. "What happened to this poor girl?" "Ryder's gang," Alex explained grimly. "Found them trying to auction her off in the square." Mrs. Holloway's face hardened. "Those vile men. Someone ought to run them out of the territory once and for all." "Working on it," Alex replied. "In the meantime, Miss Lancaster needs a safe place to stay for a day or two until she's well enough to travel to her uncle's place in Silver Creek." "Of course," Mrs. Holloway said, her motherly instincts clearly taking over as she guided Zara to a chair. "I'll fix you some hot food and draw a bath. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in days." "Thank you," Zara said, overwhelmed by the kindness after weeks of harsh treatment. Alex placed his hat back on his head. "I need to file a report and send a telegraph to the federal marshal in Silver Creek. He can notify your uncle that you're safe and will be arriving soon." Zara reached out, catching his sleeve. "How can I ever repay you?" Something flickered in his eyes, something warm that made her heart skip a beat. "No repayment necessary, Miss Lancaster. Just doing my job." But they both knew it was more than that. After Alex left, Mrs. Holloway bustled Zara upstairs to a small but clean room with a real bed, the first she'd seen in weeks. The hot bath that followed was heaven, washing away not just the dirt, but some of the fear and humiliation she'd been carrying. Dressed in a borrowed nightgown, Zara ate the hearty stew Mrs. Holloway provided, then slept for nearly 14 hours straight. When she awoke, sunlight was streaming through the curtains, and a clean dress had been laid out for her, simple but far better than her tattered traveling clothes. A knock at the door revealed Mrs. Holloway with a breakfast tray. "The marshal's downstairs waiting to speak with you, dear. He says there's no rush, you can eat first." 20 minutes later, feeling more human than she had in weeks, Zara descended the stairs to find Alex seated in the parlor, turning his hat in his hands. He stood immediately when he saw her. "Miss Lancaster," he greeted her, his eyes taking in her improved appearance. "You look much better." "I feel much better, thanks to your kindness," she replied, noticing how the morning light highlighted the blue of his eyes. "I received a reply from Silver Creek," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Your uncle is overjoyed to hear you're safe. He'd been worried when you didn't arrive as scheduled." Relief washed over Zara. "Thank goodness. When can I leave for Silver Creek?" Alex cleared his throat. "That's what I wanted to discuss with you. There's a stagecoach leaving tomorrow, but—" He hesitated. "The men who tried to sell you Ryder's gang, they're still in the area. I'm concerned about your safety on a public coach." Zara's hand flew to her throat, fear returning. "What do you suggest?" "I need to deliver some documents to the Silver Creek courthouse anyway," Alex said, his tone casual though his eyes were intent. "I could escort you personally. We'd travel by horseback. It would take an extra day, but it would be safer." "You would do that for me?" Zara asked, touched by his concern. "I promised you'd be safe," he replied simply. "I aim to keep that promise." The following morning, they set out just as dawn was breaking over the eastern mountains. Zara rode a gentle mare borrowed from the local livery, while Alex sat atop his own sturdy gelding. Mrs. Holloway had packed them provisions for the journey, and Alex carried a rifle in addition to his revolver. The first few hours passed in relative silence as they followed a trail leading northwest towards Silver Creek. Zara found herself studying Alex's profile when he wasn't looking the strong line of his jaw. The way his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, alert for any danger. "You're not from around here originally," she finally said, breaking the silence. It wasn't a question. Alex glanced at her, surprise evident in his expression. "How'd you figure that?" "Your accent has traces of the East in it, and your manners are more refined than most men I've encountered out here." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Observant. You're right, I grew up in Pennsylvania. My father was a lawyer." "What brought you west?" His smile faded slightly. "The war. After Gettysburg, I needed open spaces and new horizons." Zara nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. Many had sought new beginnings after the devastation of the Civil War. "And you?" Alex asked, turning the conversation. "Boston is a long way from Colorado territory." Over the next hour, as their horses steadily ate up the miles, Zara told him about her life in Boston, her father's banking business that had failed shortly before his death, leaving her with no inheritance and few prospects. "My uncle wrote that the West was a place where people could start fresh," she explained, "where your family name and past don't matter as much as what you're willing to do and learn." "Your uncle sounds like a wise man," Alex commented. "He is. He came west 20 years ago and built his ranch from nothing. He never married, so when my parents died, he insisted I come live with him." She paused, looking out at the vast landscape of rolling hills and distant mountains. "I was terrified at first, but now, there's something about this country. It feels like possibility." Alex's gaze lingered on her face. "It is that." As the sun climbed higher, they stopped to rest the horses beside a small creek. Alex helped Zara dismount, his hands strong and steady at her waist. The brief contact sent an unexpected warmth through her body. They shared a simple meal of bread, dried meat, and apples in the shade of a cottonwood tree. Zara found herself relaxing in Alex's company, the horror of her recent experience receding slightly in the peaceful setting. "Tell me about being a marshal," she prompted, curious about the man who had saved her. Alex took a drink from his canteen before answering. "It's not always as dramatic as rescuing damsels from auction blocks." "I should hope not," Zara replied with a small smile. "Mostly it's enforcing federal laws, delivering court documents, catching mail robbers, that sort of thing." He paused. "But occasionally, you get to make a real difference in someone's life. Those are the days that make it worthwhile." The sincerity in his voice touched something inside Zara. "Like yesterday." "Like yesterday," he agreed, his eyes meeting hers. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the babbling of the creek and the occasional nickering of the horses. Zara found herself wishing the journey could last longer than 3 days. As they prepared to continue, Alex suddenly stiffened, his hand moving to his revolver. "Get behind me," he ordered quietly. Zara obeyed instantly, heart pounding as she followed his gaze across the creek where 3 riders had appeared on the opposite bank. "Marshal Owens," one of the men called. "Fancy meeting you out here?" Alex positioned himself between Zara and the newcomers. "Ryder, you're a long way from town." The man named Ryder, whom Zara now recognized as the leader of the gang that had captured her, smiled unpleasantly. "Just doing some business. I see you've got our merchandise with you." "Miss Lancaster is under my protection," Alex stated, his voice hard as steel. "I suggest you ride on and forget you ever saw her." Ryder laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "That's valuable property you've stolen from us, Marshal. We had expenses in bringing her west." "She's a free woman, not property," Alex replied, "and the only crime committed was by you and your men when you kidnapped her." The tension in the air was palpable as the 2 men stared at each other across the creek. Zara could see Ryder's companions shifting restlessly, their hands hovering near their weapons. "3 against 1, Marshal," Ryder pointed out. "Not good odds, even for a man with your reputation." Alex's posture remained relaxed, but Zara could sense the coiled readiness in him. "I only count 2.5 men, Ryder. You never were much in a fair fight." Ryder's face darkened with anger. For a heart-stopping moment, Zara thought violence was inevitable. Then, surprisingly, Ryder reined his horse back. "This isn't over, Owens," he warned. "The girl isn't worth dying for." "That's where you're wrong," Alex replied calmly. "Every innocent life is worth defending. Remember that before you come after her again." With a final glare, Ryder and his men turned their horses and rode away, disappearing into the tree line on the far side of the creek. Only when they were gone did Alex relax slightly, turning to Zara. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her hands were trembling. "Will they come back?" "Possibly," he admitted. "We'll need to be extra cautious and change our route. There's a place about 10 miles from here where we can seek shelter for the night, a trading post run by a friend of mine. We'll be safe there." They rode hard for the rest of the afternoon, Alex frequently checking their back trail for signs of pursuit. The sun was low on the horizon when they finally reached the trading post, a sturdy log building surrounded by a high wooden fence. A broad-shouldered man with a thick beard emerged as they approached, rifle in hand, until he recognized Alex. "Marshal Owens, didn't expect to see you out this way." "Hello, Jackson," Alex greeted him, dismounting and helping Zara down from her horse. "We need a safe place for the night. Had some trouble on the trail." Jackson's eyes moved to Zara, taking in her city clothes and obvious exhaustion. "Riders, boys?" Alex nodded grimly. "Come on in then," Jackson said, gesturing toward the main building. "My wife will be pleased to have another woman to talk to. Gets lonely out here for her." The interior of the trading post was surprisingly cozy, with a large stone fireplace and sturdy wooden furniture. Jackson's wife, Emma, welcomed them warmly, immediately taking Zara under her wing. "You poor dear," she clucked, ushering Zara to a chair by the fire. "You look dead on your feet. I'll fix you some hot food and tea while the men see to the horses." As Alex headed back outside with Jackson, he caught Zara's eye. "You're safe here," he assured her. "Jackson was a sergeant in my regiment during the war. There's no man I'd trust more to help guard my back." Over a hearty meal of venison stew and fresh bread, Jackson and Emma shared stories of life at the remote trading post. They mainly served trappers, hunters, and the occasional Native American tribes who came to trade furs and hides for supplies. "How much further to Silver Creek?" Zara asked when there was a lull in the conversation. "About 2 days' ride," Jackson answered. "Though, if you're avoiding the main trails because of Ryder, it might take a bit longer." Emma showed Zara to a small side room with a narrow bed. "It's not much, but it's clean," she apologized. "It's perfect," Zara assured her. "Thank you for your hospitality." Left alone, Zara sat on the edge of the bed, replaying the day's events in her mind. The confrontation with Ryder had shaken her, but Alex's unwavering protection gave her courage. There was something about the Marshal that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't since her parents were alive. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Alex entered, carrying a mug of something steaming. "Emma thought you might like some tea before bed," he said, offering her the mug. "Thank you," Zara replied, taking it from him. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, sending a tingle up her arm. "I'll be sleeping just outside your door tonight," he told her, his voice low. "Jackson will take the first watch outside. You have nothing to fear." Zara looked up at him, suddenly overcome with emotion. "Why are you doing all this for me? Going so far out of your way, risking your life? You barely know me." Alex was quiet for a moment, his blue eyes searching her face. "When I saw you standing on that auction block, something inside me shifted. I've seen a lot of injustice in my time as a marshal, but the thought of what those men planned for you—" He broke off, his jaw tightening. "I couldn't stand by and let it happen. Not to anyone, but especially not to you." "Especially not to me?" Zara repeated softly. A faint color touched his cheekbones. "I can't explain it. Something about you. I just knew I needed to keep you safe." Their eyes held for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. "I should let you rest," Alex finally said, stepping back toward the door. "We'll leave at first light." "Marshal," Zara called as he reached for the door handle. He turned. "Alex," he corrected gently. "Please call me Alex." "Alex," she amended, a small smile touching her lips. "Thank you. For everything." He nodded once, his expression softening. "Good night, Zara." As the door closed behind him, Zara realized it was the first time he had used her given name. She liked the way it sounded in his deep voice. The next morning dawned clear but cool. After a hearty breakfast, they bid farewell to Jackson and Emma, with promises to visit again under happier circumstances. As they mounted their horses, Jackson pulled Alex aside for a quiet conversation, while Emma pressed a small package of food into Zara's hands. "There's a shortcut through the mountains," Alex explained as they rode away from the trading post. "It's rougher terrain, but it will keep us away from the main trails where Ryder might be watching." The path soon narrowed as they entered the foothills, forcing them to ride single file. Alex led the way, occasionally glancing back to check on Zara. The scenery grew increasingly dramatic, towering pines, rocky outcroppings, and glimpses of snow-capped peaks in the distance. By midday, they had climbed high enough that Zara could look back and see the vast expanse of prairie stretching out behind them. The view took her breath away. "It's beautiful," she murmured as they stopped to rest the horses. Alex smiled, watching her reaction to the landscape. "Different from Boston, I imagine." "Completely different," she agreed. "Everything here feels bigger, more significant somehow." "That's why I stayed after the war," Alex admitted, leaning against a boulder beside her. "Back east, I felt confined by buildings and society and expectations. Out here, a person can breathe." Zara studied his profile, noting how relaxed he seemed despite their precarious situation. "Is that why you became a marshal? For the freedom?" He considered her question thoughtfully. "Partly, but mainly because I saw how lawlessness was hurting innocent people trying to build a life out here. After seeing so much death in the war, I wanted to protect life for a change." "You're good at it," Zara said softly. "Protecting people." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, Zara thought he might move closer. Instead, he straightened and checked the position of the sun. "We should keep moving if we want to reach Whispering Pines by nightfall." "Whispering Pines?" Zara questioned, following him back to the horses. Small settlement, barely more than a few cabins and a general store. But there's a widow there, Mrs. Bennett, who rents rooms to travelers. We'll be safe for the night." As they continued their journey, the trail grew steeper and more challenging. Zara, who had only minimal riding experience before this trip, found herself struggling to keep up. When her mare stumbled on a loose rock, she nearly tumbled from the saddle. In an instant, Alex was beside her, his hand steadying her arm. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she gasped, heart pounding from the near fall. "I'm just not much of a horsewoman." "You're doing fine," he assured her. "But let's take it slower. No point risking a broken neck." For the next hour, he stayed close beside her whenever the trail widened enough to allow it, occasionally reaching over to adjust her grip on the reins, or offering quiet advice on how to navigate the difficult terrain. "How much further?" Zara asked, as afternoon waned into evening, her body aching from the unaccustomed hours in the saddle. "Not far now," Alex promised. "See that smoke rising above the trees? That's Whispering Pines." The settlement turned out to be even smaller than Alex had described, just 4 cabins and a modest general store gathered around a central well. Mrs. Bennett's home was the largest of the structures, with a sign indicating rooms for rent. The widow herself was a surprise younger than Zara had expected, perhaps in her mid-30s, with kind eyes and a welcoming smile. She greeted Alex like an old friend. "Marshal Owens, it's been nearly a year since you passed through." Her gaze moved to Zara with obvious curiosity. "Mrs. Bennett, this is Miss Zara Lancaster," Alex introduced. "I'm escorting her to her uncle's ranch in Silver Creek." "Pleased to meet you, dear," Mrs. Bennett said warmly. "You both look exhausted. Come in and rest while I prepare some supper." The widow's home was neat and comfortable, with 2 small guest rooms off the main living area. After enjoying a simple but delicious meal of rabbit stew and cornbread, Zara excused herself to wash up and rest her aching muscles. Through the thin walls, she could hear Alex and Mrs. Bennett conversing in low tones. Though she couldn't make out the words, something about their familiarity made her wonder about their relationship. The thought brought an unexpected twinge of, was it jealousy? Zara shook her head at her own foolishness. Alex was simply doing his job, protecting a citizen in need. Any feelings she might be developing were surely just gratitude combined with the intensity of their shared experiences. Yet, when he knocked softly on her door to bid her good night, the warmth in his blue eyes made her wonder if perhaps she wasn't alone in feeling a connection between them. "We'll reach Silver Creek by tomorrow evening," he told her. "Your uncle's ranch is just outside town." Zara nodded, suddenly realizing how soon their journey would end. "And then you'll return to Redemption Creek?" "Eventually," he replied. "I have business at the courthouse in Silver Creek that might keep me there for a few days." "I'm glad," she said before she could stop herself. "I mean, I'd like to properly thank you once we arrive safely. Perhaps you could join my uncle and me for dinner?" Alex's smile reached his eyes, creating small crinkles at the corners that Zara found utterly charming. "I'd like that very much." Sleep came easier that night despite her aching body, thoughts of Alex's smile accompanying her into dreams. The final day of their journey dawned bright and clear. Mrs. Bennett provided them with a hearty breakfast and packed food for their midday meal. As they prepared to leave, she pulled Zara aside. "He's a good man, Marshal Owens," she said quietly. "One of the best I've known." Zara felt heat rise to her cheeks. "He's certainly been kind to me." Mrs. Bennett's knowing smile suggested she wasn't fooled. Kindness is his nature, but the way he looks at you, that's something more. Before Zara could respond, Alex appeared with the horses ready. They thanked Mrs. Bennett for her hospitality and set off on the final leg of their journey to Silver Creek. The terrain gradually flattened as they descended from the mountains, transitioning to rolling grasslands dotted with small farms and ranches. Signs of civilization became more frequent fenced pastures, the occasional passing wagon, smoke rising from distant chimneys. They stopped for a midday meal beside a clear stream, the atmosphere between them more relaxed now that they were closer to their destination and further from the threat of Ryder and his gang. "Tell me more about your uncle," Alex requested as they shared the bread and cheese Mrs. Bennett had provided. "Uncle William was my father's younger brother," Zara explained. "He came west when I was just a child, determined to make his own way rather than join the family banking business. My father always spoke of him with a mixture of exasperation and admiration. And you've never met him? Once, when I was very young, he visited Boston briefly. I remember a tall man with a booming laugh who brought me a doll carved from wood. She smiled at the memory. His letters over the years have been infrequent, but always warm. When my parents died, he wrote immediately offering me a home. He sounds like a good man, Alex commented. I hope so, Zara admitted. Truth be told, I'm a bit nervous about meeting him as an adult. We're practically strangers. Alex reached over, briefly squeezing her hand. Anyone would be lucky to have you as family, Zara. His touch and the sincerity in his voice sent warmth spreading through her. Thank you, she murmured. As they continued their journey, Alex pointed out landmarks and shared stories about the region. Zara found herself memorizing the sound of his laugh, the way sunlight played across his features, storing these memories for after they parted ways. Late afternoon brought their first glimpse of Silver Creek, a substantial town nestled in a valley beside the gleaming ribbon of water that gave it its name. Unlike Redemption Creek, with its rough frontier appearance, Silver Creek looked established and prosperous, with painted buildings and proper streets. It's larger than I expected, Zara commented as they rode down the main street. Several people called greetings to Alex, indicating he was well known here. Silver Creek's booming since the new silver mine opened last year, Alex explained. Your uncle's ranch is about 3 miles north of town, prime grazing land. They passed through the town and continued along a well-maintained road leading into the countryside. After about half an hour, Alex pointed to a property ahead, where a large log house stood surrounded by outbuildings and corrals containing horses and cattle. That's the Lancaster place, he said, one of the best-run ranches in the territory. Zara's stomach fluttered with nerves as they approached the gate bearing a wooden sign with Lancaster burned into it. The reality of her new life was suddenly imminent. As they rode into the yard, a tall figure emerged from the barn, a broad-shouldered man with silvering hair and a weathered face. His eyes widened as he caught sight of them, and he strode forward quickly. "Uncle William?" Zara called tentatively. The man's face broke into a smile that transformed his stern features. "Zara, by God, it is you." He hurried toward them as they dismounted. "When I got the marshal's telegraph saying you were safe, I could hardly believe it. We'd feared the worst when the stagecoach was found robbed with passengers missing." He enveloped her in a bone-crushing hug, then held her at arm's length to look at her. "You're the image of your mother," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Zara found herself returning his smile, relief washing through her at his genuine welcome. "I'm so grateful for your invitation to come live with you." "This is your home now," William assured her, before turning to Alex with an outstretched hand. "Marshal Owens, I'm forever in your debt for bringing my niece safely to me." "Just doing my duty, sir," Alex replied, though his eyes briefly met Zara's with a warmth that suggested it had been far more than duty. "Nonsense," William declared. "You'll stay for dinner at the very least. I insist." As her uncle led them toward the house, Zara felt a strange mixture of emotions, relief at reaching safety, gratitude for her uncle's warm welcome, but also a growing sadness at the thought that her time with Alex would soon end. The Lancaster ranch house proved to be far more comfortable than its rustic exterior suggested. The main room featured a massive stone fireplace, well-crafted furniture, and even a piano in one corner. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes that made Zara's heart leap with pleasure. "Your aunt had a love of reading," William explained, following her gaze. "She passed 5 years ago, but I've kept her books. Thought you might appreciate them." "I do," Zara assured him. "Very much." A housekeeper named Mrs. Granger appeared to show Zara to her room, a spacious chamber with a real bed, dresser, and washstand. A vase of wildflowers sat on the windowsill, a thoughtful touch that brought tears to Zara's eyes after her harrowing weeks of captivity and uncertain future. When she returned downstairs after washing up, she found Alex and her uncle deep in conversation. They fell silent as she entered, making her wonder what they had been discussing. Dinner was a festive affair, with Mrs. Granger producing a feast that would have impressed even Boston society. Throughout the meal, William asked about their journey, his expression darkening when Alex explained about Ryder and his gang. These slave traders operating in our territory need to be stopped once and for all, he declared angrily. Taking advantage of vulnerable travelers, especially women, it's unconscionable. Agreed, Alex said. The federal authorities are building a case against them. What happened to Zara will help ensure they face justice. The conversation shifted to lighter topics as the meal progressed. Zara found herself watching Alex, noting how easily he conversed with her uncle, how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, how his hands, strong yet gentle, moved expressively as he spoke. After dinner, William insisted on showing Alex his prized horses in the barn, leaving Zara alone with her thoughts for the first time since their arrival. Standing by the window, watching the two men cross the yard in the fading light, she acknowledged the truth she'd been avoiding. She had fallen in love with Alexander Owens. The realization should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like finally recognizing something that had been true for days. But what could come of such feelings? Alex was a marshal with responsibilities that took him all over the territory. She was newly arrived, with no standing or prospects of her own, and she had no idea if he felt anything beyond protective duty toward her. When the men returned, William announced he needed to check on a sick calf, leaving Zara and Alex alone in the comfortable main room. "Your uncle is a remarkable man," Alex commented, standing somewhat awkwardly by the fireplace. "He's built something special here." "Yes," Zara agreed. "I'm fortunate he's taken me in." An uncomfortable silence fell between them, the first since their journey began. Zara searched for something to say, acutely aware that their time together was drawing to a close. "Will you leave for town tonight?" she finally asked. Alex shook his head. "Your uncle insisted I stay in the bunkhouse. I'll ride to the courthouse in the morning to file my report." And then, Zara couldn't keep herself from asking. Alex's blue eyes met hers, something unreadable in their depths. "I have business in Silver Creek for a few days. After that, I should return to Redemption Creek." Zara nodded, fighting back disappointment. What had she expected? That he would declare undying love and change his entire life for a woman he'd known less than a week? "Zara," Alex said softly, taking a step toward her. "These past few days—" The door opened as William returned, interrupting whatever Alex had been about to say. The moment shattered, and soon after, Alex excused himself to retire to the bunkhouse. At the door, he paused, turning back to Zara. "I'll see you before I leave for town in the morning." She nodded, holding his gaze for a moment longer than necessary. "Good night, Alex." Sleep eluded Zara that night. She tossed and turned, replaying every interaction with Alex, wondering what he had been about to say before her uncle interrupted. By dawn, she had made a decision she would tell him how she felt. Even if nothing could come of it, she couldn't let him ride away without knowing the truth. Dressing quickly, she made her way downstairs and out to the yard. The ranch was already active, with hands moving between the barn and corrals. She spotted Alex by the bunkhouse, saddling his horse. "Good morning," she called, crossing the yard toward him. He turned, surprise and pleasure crossing his features. "You're up early." "I wanted to see you before you left," she admitted. Taking a deep breath, she continued. "Alex, there's something I need to tell you." A shout from one of the ranch hands interrupted her. "Riders coming! Looks like trouble!" Alex was instantly alert, his hand moving to his revolver as he stepped in front of Zara, protectively. Squinting against the rising sun, he scanned the approaching riders. "Rider!" he growled, recognition and anger darkening his features. "Get to the house, Zara, now." "But, please," he urged, his eyes never leaving the approaching threat. "I can't protect you and fight them at the same time." Reluctantly, she retreated to the porch where her uncle now stood, rifle in hand. Several ranch hands had also armed themselves, forming a defensive line. Ryder and 5 men rode into the yard, stopping a respectful distance from the armed ranchers. The tension in the air was palpable. "Marshal Owens," Ryder called, a false smile on his face. "Quite a reception committee you've got here." "This is private property, Ryder," Alex replied coldly. "State your business and then move on." Ryder's smile widened. "My business is with the girl. She still owes us for her passage west." William stepped forward, his rifle aimed squarely at Ryder's chest. "My niece owes you nothing. She was kidnapped and nearly sold like cattle. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't shoot you where you sit. Now, Ryder said, raising his hands in a placating gesture. No need for violence. We're businessmen after all. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. The only arrangement, Alex stated firmly, is that you turn yourself in to face charges of kidnapping and human trafficking, or you leave Lancaster property immediately and don't stop riding until you're out of Colorado territory. Ryder's pretense of friendliness disappeared, his face hardening into a mask of hatred. You've been a thorn in my side for too long, Owens. Time to end this. What happened next unfolded with frightening speed. Ryder reached for his gun, but Alex was faster, firing twice in rapid succession. Ryder tumbled from his horse as his men drew their weapons, firing wildly. Chaos erupted in the yard. William pulled Zara behind a support beam as bullets splintered wood around them. The ranch hands returned fire, creating a deafening cacophony. Through the smoke and confusion, Zara saw Alex dive for cover behind the water trough. He fired methodically, dropping one of Ryder's men with a shot to the shoulder. The firefight lasted less than a minute, though to Zara it seemed to stretch for hours. When the shooting finally stopped, 3 of Ryder's men were down, 1 dead, 2 wounded. The remaining 2 had thrown down their weapons, hands raised in surrender. Zara's eyes frantically searched for Alex, her heart stopping when she couldn't immediately locate him. Then she saw him rise slowly from behind the trough, a dark stain spreading across his left sleeve. "Alex!" she cried, breaking away from her uncle's protective grasp and running toward him. "I'm all right," he assured her as she reached him, though his face was pale. "Just caught a bullet in the arm." William was organizing the ranch hands, securing the prisoners and tending to the wounded. "Get the marshal inside," he ordered 2 of his men. "Mrs. Granger can see to that wound." In the kitchen, Zara helped Mrs. Granger clean and bandage Alex's arm. The bullet had passed through the fleshy part above his elbow, painful but not life-threatening. "You're lucky," Mrs. Granger declared as she tied off the bandage. "Another inch and it would have hit bone." Alex's eyes never left Zara's face during the procedure. "I've been lucky since the moment I saw you on that auction block," he said softly when Mrs. Granger stepped away to prepare a pain-relieving tea. Zara's breath caught at the intensity in his gaze. "Alex, let me speak," he insisted gently. "I've been trying to find the right words for days. When I first saw you, something changed inside me. I told myself it was just protective instinct. But it's more than that, Zara. Much more." He reached for her hand with his uninjured arm. "I've never believed in love at first sight. It seemed like something from dime novels, not real life. But these past days with you, I can't imagine going back to my life without you in it." Tears filled Zara's eyes, joy expanding in her chest until she thought it might burst. "I feel the same way," she whispered. "I was coming to tell you this morning, before—" A smile spread across Alex's face, transforming his features. "I had a long talk with your uncle last night," he confessed, "about my intentions toward you." "Your intentions?" Zara repeated, heart racing. "I know it's fast," Alex acknowledged. "We've known each other less than a week, but sometimes life gives you a chance at happiness, and only a fool would ride away from it." He squeezed her hand. "I'm not asking for promises yet, just a chance to court you properly, with your uncle's blessing," which, by the way, he gave rather enthusiastically. Zara couldn't help laughing through her tears. "He's known me less time than you have. He said he recognized the same look in my eyes that he once had when he looked at your aunt," Alex replied softly, "and that he wouldn't stand in the way of his niece finding the same happiness he'd known." Before Zara could respond, William entered the kitchen. "Sheriff's on his way from town to deal with the prisoners," he announced. "Ryder's dead. Good riddance to bad rubbish, I say." His expression softened as he took in their clasped hands. "I see you two have had your talk. About time." Alex straightened, wincing slightly at the movement. "Sir, with your permission, I'd like to extend my stay in Silver Creek indefinitely. There's an opening for a deputy marshal here, and I aim to apply for it." William's broad smile was answer enough. "I think that's a fine idea, son. Fine idea indeed." Later that evening, with Ryder's men safely in the Silver Creek jail and Alex resting comfortably in the ranch's guest room rather than the bunkhouse, Zara sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. Alex joined her, moving carefully to protect his injured arm. "Your uncle has quite a view here," he commented, settling beside her on the bench. "It's beautiful," Zara agreed. "Nothing like this in Boston. Do you miss it? The city?" She considered the question honestly. "I miss certain things, bookshops, theaters, the familiarity of it all. But there's something about this place." She gestured toward the vast landscape before them. "It feels like freedom." Alex smiled, understanding in his eyes. "That's exactly how I felt when I first came west." He reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. "I want you to know something, Zara. I'm not asking you to change your plans or give up the new life you're building here. I just want to be part of it, if you'll have me." Zara turned to face him fully. "Alex, when I stood on that auction block, I thought my life was over. Instead, it was just beginning, because of you." She leaned forward, courage bolstering her actions, and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was soft, tentative at first, then deepening as Alex responded, his hand coming up to cradle her face. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Alex rested his forehead against hers. "I think I've been waiting my whole life for you, Zara Lancaster." "Then it's fortunate you found me when you did," she replied with a smile, and said those words I'll never forget. "Come down, you're safe with me." "You'll always be safe with me," Alex promised. "That's one vow I can make right now." As the last rays of sunlight faded from the mountains, they remained on the porch, talking of future possibilities while savoring the present moment. For Zara, whose world had been shattered by loss and nearly destroyed by cruelty, the simple joy of sitting beside Alex felt like a miracle, one she would cherish forever. 6 months later, on a perfect autumn day with golden leaves carpeting the ground, Zara Lancaster became Zara Owens in a ceremony on the ranch. William gave her away, beaming with pride and just a hint of tears in his eyes. Alex, now permanently stationed in Silver Creek as deputy marshal, couldn't take his eyes off his bride as she walked toward him in a gown of ivory silk. Their vows were simple but heartfelt. Promises to love and protect each other through whatever challenges life might bring. When Alex slipped the ring on Zara's finger, a band of gold with a small sapphire that matched his eyes, he whispered words only she could hear. "You've been safe with me from the first day. Now you're home with me for all our days to come." The celebration afterward was a blend of Eastern refinement and Western hospitality. Fine china alongside barbecued beef, classical music giving way to fiddle tunes as the evening progressed. Zara, watching her husband laughing with her uncle, felt a completeness she had never known was possible. Later, as they danced under lantern light, Alex pulled her close. "Happy, Mrs. Owens?" "Completely," she assured him, resting her head against his chest. "Though I still can't quite believe how our story began." "On an auction block in a dusty town," Alex mused, his voice tender with memory. "Not the most romantic beginning." "But the perfect beginning for us," Zara countered. "It brought us together." As the music swelled around them, they moved in perfect harmony, two souls who had found in each other exactly what they needed: safety, understanding, and a love that had blossomed from the most unlikely circumstances into something beautiful and enduring. And in the years that followed, as they built their own home on land adjoining her uncle's ranch, as their family grew, with the addition of a son and later a daughter, as Alex rose to become the respected marshal of Silver Creek, and Zara established a school for the growing community, they never forgot how their story began. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, they would sit on their porch watching the sunset and remind each other of those first days together, marveling at how a moment of terrible danger had led to a lifetime of happiness. For Zara, who had once stood trembling on an auction block with no hope for her future, the journey had come full circle. She had found not just safety in Alex's arms, but a love that made every hardship worthwhile, a love born in the wild territory of the American West, where second chances and new beginnings were as vast and promising as the endless horizon.